What is going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. Happy today to show you guys my new motorcycle. Now, when I sold my previous bike, I had some people in the comment section sort of guessing what I was going to pick up next. There were people on Team Supermoto still. They thought I was gonna change to a different Supermoto. There were people who were on Team Adventure Bike and Team Cruiser, like Harleys or Triumphs right here. Hello, Triumph. Sorry, but I didn't pick BMW or Triumph. And then there were a few obscurities. Some people thought I might get like a Zero electric motorcycle, which would be super cool. I would love to own one of those someday. And then there were a few people who were on Team Sport Bike. And those of you who were on Team Sport Bike, you would be correct. Now, if you watched some of my previous moto vlogs, you would know that I covered all of the motorcycles that I've owned in the past, and I've owned more motorcycles than I've owned vehicles, like cars at this point. I started on sport bikes when I was 16, and I was super heavy into it for a while because there are so many good roads around here that allow you to really put them to good use. So I've been riding sport bikes for a long time. The bike that I probably put the most miles on in my life was my previous 07 CBR 1000RR. And now that I've been riding motorcycle a lot more lately, since this is the perfect social distancing activity, I decided that it would be time to get back on the saddle of a leader bike. Let's pull over here, see if I can give you guys a look at the bike. So this right here is my 2020 Kawasaki Ninja ZX-10R in all of its glory. I, of course, went with the black version. There are quite a few variants of these motorcycles out there. They have the KRT livery one, which is all crazy and green and has some wild graphics down it. I, of course, opted for the more simple version, and this is actually the ABS version as well. Now, there's so many things to talk about on a motorcycle like this, and it seems like a spaceship to me because my previous leader bike, it had like no technology to it. Back in 2007, I mean, they have always made great motorcycles, but there were no like electronics, and technology has come a long way since I've been on a leader bike last. So let me give you guys a quick overview of what we have going on here, and then we'll ride a little bit more. I'll probably do a more thorough video on this in the future. So starting up front here, this thing is, of course, super aggressive. I've done some modifications, and I'm going to kind of skip over those for now. But we have the ram air up front here, sucking in a ton of air into the engine. We have the Showa fork system, Brembo brakes. This is actually a really cool system here, and I'm not entirely sure of why this is better than a traditional fork setup. However, up here on top of the triple tree, you can adjust the preload of the springs, and then down here, the gas system is actually separate from the rest of the fork. And everything on Kawasaki race team bikes have basically trickled down into their ZX-10R line, and this is essentially a race-ready bike right from the showroom floor. So we have the balance-free forks up front. We have the balance-free rear suspension as well. On this side, you will notice right here is an ABS pump. This is the ABS version, and with that comes traction control and all sorts of crazy electronics that I'm still sort of playing with. The bike is still in its break-in period right now. But once I get more accustomed to all of those things, I'll probably do videos on like the in-depth electronics that go into this bike. So we still have the super clean yet aggressive lines all throughout this motorcycle. 17-inch 3-spoke wheels in both the front and the rear. This one comes with some Bridgestone's 190s. And I'm sorry to report, but I already had a nail or like a big chunk of metal embedded in this tire. So I'm not even out of the break-in period yet, and I'm already riding this thing on a plugged tire. which is a huge bummer, but we'll talk about that later. So now let's actually come up here and sit on the bike. I'm not sure how well you guys are going to be able to see the whole instrument cluster here, but there's not a whole lot to look at. They're still using the same display from some of the older models. Some people don't really like that. In 2020, they feel like it should all be digital. I'm okay with it. You have the standard controls here. You have a lap timer, and then you use these switches down here to actually select the function to go through the launch control, the ABS system. They have like corner monitoring and all sorts of track features already baked into this bike. We have the Öhlins electric steering dampener up here, Brembo for the front brake. And like I mentioned, this thing feels like a spaceship to me. My previous leader bike didn't have all sorts of technology like this thing has. It has different power modes, the Kawasaki electric braking controller, traction control, which right now I have in the first mode. I've basically been riding in the full power mode with the ABS system on the less interfering mode. I believe it's 1 out of 5, so if you're like riding in the rain or something, you can bump that up to 5 if you want to feel a little bit safer. Anyway, oh man, it sounds so good. Let's go ride this thing a little bit and talk about how I feel about it. This obviously is not a first ride impression. We're coming up to the 600-mile oil change actually, so I'm still babying it a little bit. Not trying to get super crazy in the RPMs, but a lot of the break-in myths that you hear about motorcycles online, they're just myths. Proper break-in is riding the bike like it's meant to be ridden, varying RPMs, and making sure those rings seat properly. Alright, so I'm basically categorizing this bike as my first realistic dream bike. Like I mentioned, I've ridden so many different motorcycles over the years, and very much like how my STI was my first realistic dream car, this was like my first realistic dream bike. There's so many great options to choose from, but a long time ago, a friend of mine let me ride one of his new ZX-10 Ninjas. I don't remember exactly what year it was. It might have been a 12 or a 14. I believe it was right when they changed the body style to more of this like squinty look, super aggressive, and he did a few things to it. He like ripped the cat off right away, which I of course ripped my exhaust and cat out as well. And I rode that thing around just like a shopping center parking lot, and oh my god, Kawasaki's engines just sound unlike anything else. To me, it's one of the best sounding 4-cylinder engines that are available right now. And when I was going from my older CBR to riding a newer bike, Kawasaki, with all of these electronic features, it just like blew my mind. So fast forward to 2020 now, things have been improved even more. All of that technology from Kawasaki Race Team has been trickling down to their sport bikes and their street bikes that people can buy, and it makes for an incredible riding experience. So when I first got on this bike and took it for the first spin, I was immediately greeted with the raw power of a leader bike again. That's something that took me couple miles to get used to once again. Maybe after like 100 or 200 miles, then I sort of got my sport bike legs back and I felt comfortable getting used to the tires, leaning this thing into turns, and riding like I used to back in the day when I was like 16 to 20. Now, other than the sound and the raw power that these bikes have, one thing that I noticed is that they have refined bikes like this so much, and this thing is incredibly smooth. Everything that they've added to it serves a very functional purpose, and I'm not just talking about the ABS system and all the electronics, but simple things like this has a quick shifter down here, so if I'm cruising in 5th gear, this actually really comes into play when you're really getting on it. Say you're on a track day. If I'm ripping through the gears, 5th gear right now, simply click it up and I'm in 6th gear. It is just seamless shifting. I don't need to use my clutch hand, and it just makes things a little bit more precise. Now, previously coming from my DRZ, that bike had no technology, like zero. Those bikes have been the same for forever, and I dig the bike for what it is and what it was. But that bike didn't have a gear indicator like you see down here. It didn't even have a gas light. So having these like little creature comforts again, it's awesome. I love being able to look down and see what gear I'm in. I love being able to flip through these menus down here to see how many miles I'm getting per gallon, and if I'm riding in the economy mode, I can tell the time on here and set it very easily. Getting 61 miles per gallon right now because I'm just sort of like putting around. I got a lap timer right there, which I haven't used yet, but maybe I'll get the chance to get out to a track day in the future and put that thing to use. But yeah, there are just so many awesome things about this bike, and most people are probably like, so what, dude? You have a gear indicator. Really cool. And I know it's not that exciting, but to me it is. So the bike has crazy power, awesome features that I've been missing for my past like 3 motorcycles that I've owned, and it's awesome to be able to be back on like a legitimate new motorcycle. Can't believe how much the technology has improved over the years, and it's just awesome. So like I was saying, this is my first like realistic dream bike. After I rode my friends a long time ago, I knew that I eventually wanted to buy a new motorcycle. However, I needed to get to a level where I was financially able to do something like that, and I'm thankful and fortunate enough now that I was able to do that. This is sort of like taking the place of my STI. I had my STI for a while. That was my realistic dream car, and it was sort of like the Sunday cruiser. I had bought my Crosstrek, which became my daily, and then I would really just take the STI out for some fun weekend rips and stuff like that. Now, after I sold the STI to purchase my van, the Sat van as you guys know it, I then lost the ability to cruise around and get my need for speed fulfilled, so to speak. So my taste in motorcycles change like the weather. I mean, one day I want an adventure bike so I can go ride around off-road in places around here because there's nothing out here. And then other times I just want to go fast. So I'm back to the sport bike, and that's basically my reason. I'm super happy to be back on a bike like this. So I know not a lot of you guys know about my experience on sport bikes, but like I mentioned, this is what I grew up riding. I learned how to ride on a CBR 600. It was an F4i, and then I think soon after that is when I upgraded to the CBR 1000. I'm much more comfortable on a sport bike than I've ever been on anything like a dirt bike. And in areas like this, we have beautiful roads and there's a lot to explore. Now, since my travel plans in the van have been postponed and everything is closed right now, I've been riding motorcycle a lot more. And when you're riding a lot and you can't really go highway speeds, you tend to do the same stuff all the time. This allows me to reach highway speeds pretty efficiently, as you can imagine. So because of that, I'm able to do more long distance rides like I used to back in the day. We used to do rides down to this place called Ephrata in Pennsylvania. There was a breakfast ride, and thousands of bikes, maybe not thousands, a couple hundred bikes would come out, and we would all ride down there, and it was a huge motorcycle gathering. Everyone would get breakfast and whatnot. We used to do Philly cheesesteak rides. We would ride down to Philly just to get cheesesteaks, and there'd be a ton of us. We'd park between Pat's and Gino's on the sidewalk there, and it was like gang times. Like, we had such an awesome crew, and even if you didn't know anyone, people would just come out to ride, and it's like you've been riding with them for years and years. So with a bike like this, I have access to more cool roads. I can ride longer distances much more comfortably without getting blasted by the wind, and I can finally come back to enjoy roads like this right here. This is called Cold Run Road. It follows this creek up along like this valley here, and it's about 10 to 15 degrees cooler than when you are not on this road. It's like the air from the water and the breeze blowing up through the valley here just cools everything down. There are roads like this all over the place right here where I live, actually, and there's some beautiful scenery as well. One thing that I have noticed now that I'm back on a sport bike is that I'm 100% going to have to change my motovlogging setup. Hopefully you guys can hear me well. I feel like I'm talking really loud. Maybe I don't need to talk so loud. But with my old helmet setup, I'm saying old, it's really not that old, but with my current helmet setup that I have right now and my motovlogging setup that I've showed you in the last video, this now puts the camera directly in my line of sight. So when I'm leaning down into a corner like this right here, this road is beautiful, by the way. When I'm leaning into corners like that, I have a more aggressive stance. I'm sort of leaned forward. Instead of looking out the bottom of my visor, like on my DRZ, when I'm sitting up straight like this, I'm more hunched over. It's not uncomfortable to me because I'm used to this, but because of that, my line of sight is coming right through my camera. So my visibility is still fine. However, I'm absolutely going to have to change this setup this week, actually. So you guys may have seen my Instagram posts of my new helmet that I've been rocking. Huge shout out to Rock. You guys know that I unboxed some of their helmets in the past, and I've checked out their skate slash snow slash bike helmets. I also have one of their original Atlas helmets, and I love it so far. I'm going to be getting an Atlas 2.0 in the mail this week. It's a carbon version. It looks like this. It's super sick. And then I'm going to be taking my current Rock Atlas helmet, and I'm going to be setting that up for a whole new motovlogging setup. Hopefully the audio will be better. Hopefully this angle will be a little bit lower. That way you guys can, I don't know, see more of what I'm doing a little bit better. And I will probably end up making a video on the helmet and the new helmet setup too here in the near future. So back to the bike now. What else can I really say about this thing? The handling is superb. While it's a relatively large and not really heavy motorcycle, I think this thing is a little bit heavier than some of the other competition out there. Kawasaki's been winning World Superbike Championships for the past like 5 years now, and I mean, it shows. This thing is still super flickable, even though it's a liter bike. 1000 cc's, technically 998 cc's. Just instant power out of corners. The electronic braking control, while I haven't really seen it interfere with my riding all that much, kind of gives you a little bit of a peace of mind knowing that it's there. If you give it a little bit too much throttle and in a position where the tire would typically slide out, it's going to control that, and it's going to make sure that your rear tire does not spin. Since I have the traction control in the least interfering mode right now, if I were to romp on the throttle, the tire would spin a little bit. If I were to, say, clutch up a wheelie out of this next corner right here, let's see if I even am able to do that. Need a straightaway. Straightaway? Nope, not yet. Okay, this road is just super curvy, but anyway, if I were to clutch up a wheelie, being in the first traction control mode, it would actually stop the wheel from rising. So if you want to do something like wheeling, don't condone that, because that is super dangerous and that is not how you're supposed to ride a motorcycle. However, if you were to try to do something like this, that traction control takes over, and instead of the wheel spinning and the front wheel coming up, it has sensors to keep the bike level, keep it upright, and that's a cool feature, I guess. I have not messed around with disabling that yet, because like I mentioned, this is still in the break-in period. I need to put about 14 more miles on until I'm at that recommended 600-mile oil change. That way I can get any engine shavings out of that oil. I also considered doing some modification videos, but as you can tell, I've been impatient. I've had the bike for, I don't know, a few weeks now and just haven't really showed it. And in that time, I did a lot of the stuff that some of you who ride sport bikes might be able to tell. Of course, I ripped off the bug-like antenna mirror slash turn signal combos, added a bar end mirror and some turns up front. I ripped off the hideous undertail literally the second I got the bike home. Now I have an integrated turn tail combo. I got a new license plate bracket, lights, and all that good stuff. And then of course I pulled off the exhaust most recently, pulled out the cat and gutted all that stuff, opened the bike up a little bit more, and this coming Friday I'm actually taking the bike to be professionally tuned. I'm throwing a new air filter in there and sort of doing like the basic modifications to, hi, what's up, why are you beeping, nice cross track. I'm not going crazy with modifications on this bike. I'm really just getting it to a point where it's how the bike should be. Getting rid of all of the crappy restrictions and the super restrictive muffler that was on there. Whew. Opening up the airbox a little bit and getting this thing professionally tuned. ECU flash, that way it is running as best as it possibly could. I think in the future I'm going to talk about power modifications to motorcycles like this because I think it's a pretty interesting topic. If you have a liter bike and you're trying to squeeze more power out of it, you're a nut job, you're insane. I mean, I understand that tinkering with bikes and stuff like that is fun, but these bikes don't need any more power, just straight up they don't. They can run a little more precise, which an ECU flash will do. And I'm going to document that whole experience as I'm on my way out there on Friday. So yeah guys, this is the new bike, 2020 ZX-10R ABS. I love it a lot. I'm not sure how many of you are actually into videos like this, if you want to see me riding around and talking about various subjects. I'm hoping that now I can ride longer distances, that I will be able to ride with some friends a little bit more. I actually rode down towards Philadelphia yesterday and rode with my friend when I got that big chunk of metal in my tire. Pulled into a gas station and essentially had a railroad spike sticking out the back of my tire, so that was great. It's not great to ride on a plug. It's really a temporary fix, but I mean, it's doing okay for now. If it starts to lose air again, I will probably end up just purchasing another Bridgestone and throwing it on the rear, which is a bummer. The bike doesn't even have 600 miles and I already got to plug in the tire. But anyway, I could rant and talk forever about this bike and motorcycles and riding everywhere, but I'll save it. If you guys want to see more about this bike, let me know in the comments down below. I'm stoked now because I can actually post pictures of it on Instagram. I'm not sure why I keep things a secret. It makes it more suspenseful, I guess. But yeah, I've taken so many pictures of this motorcycle already, and whenever I'm out riding on the weekends, you can bet that I'm gonna post a million pictures again. I'm thinking in the future we should do like a Eastern Pennsylvania meet up and ride for anyone out there who does ride motorcycles. Anyone could be welcome. I think that would be pretty cool. We could go ride to Heisler's and get food and ice cream and whatever. Beautiful day like this, can't go wrong with it. Alright, that's all for now. If you guys are new to the channel, consider clicking subscribe. I make new videos every single week. And as always, thank you for watching. I will talk to you in the next one.